Thanks so much for being on with me here today, Dan. I really appreciate your time. I know you're coming to tell us about an awesome product that you have for everybody out there, not just producers, but also anybody that wants to get their hands on this technology. With that, I want to let you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about this company and what you guys are offering, and let's get going.
Well, thank you, Michael. Really appreciate coming on and being a part of the American Grassfed Association community and being able to support you and all the producers and the consumers that you support. It's a great mission that you guys are on. I'm just so thrilled to be a part of it. So thank you very much for the time and the opportunity.
Absolutely.
So a few years ago, I started a company called Essential Energy Solutions. And Essential Energy Solutions is about bringing together a set of technologies that actually help remediate and protect against electromagnetic radiation and also produce health and wellness benefits. And we have two brands that we sell under. It's Essential Energy and Geofield Systems. And Geofield Systems is what we were originally talking about with you, because that really goes after the producers. It helps with large field area protection. And one of the things that I'm so thrilled and I'm very happy and very grateful that I get to present these products and these solutions to the world, because they are protecting against electromagnetic radiation, things from cell phones, Wi-Fi, cell towers, power lines, even radar. You have your Doppler radar, you have low orbit satellites, like things like Starlink and all that are generating incredible wireless technology solutions. But there is a effect biologically that we need to be aware of. And I'm just so thrilled and grateful that I get to present these and these solutions because they help protect against EMF and also support the goal around being healthy and being well in a world that really right now is needing that very dramatically. And there's been a major shift over the years around the energy that we deal with and awareness of energy. And what we found is that as 5G got introduced a few years ago, the awareness of the effects of electromagnetic fields, EMF, we refer to it as, and the radiation that's produced from that actually has made a lot of people wonder more about that impact. And one of the things that it does is it's actually it's so ubiquitous. Everywhere you go, you get a cell signal, you get radio. And that's the thing, is that EMF isn't a new problem. There's actually a book called The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg, and he actually chronicles the history of electrification across the world from almost 300 years ago all the way to today. And he maps and correlates that with various pandemics or illnesses or things throughout the years, but he shows how people have an allergy to electricity. And it's alternating current. It's the form of electricity that just isn't natural in the natural environment. The earth has a electrical field. We have an electrical field. The sun does as well. And those electrical fields are very natural and normal and healthy. In fact, if all things being equal, if we could go back 500 or more years, what we find is that there's an actual a healing frequency of the earth that helps keep things in balance. But that's been disrupted today. And it's been disrupted by all the power lines that we have running underground and above ground. It has been affected by the power line or the cell towers and all of these sources that really come down to what we define as electrodensity. And we are living in a time where they say, over 2 million times greater electrodensity today than 100 years ago. And I think it's common sense then, we could kind of assume that at some point that starts to have an effect, right, on our health, on our mental well-being. And the National Institute for Health has identified over 41 symptoms or diseases that are affected by electromagnetic fields. And the World Health Organization actually has that listed as a class 2B carcinogen. So they say that this is a likely cause of cancer. And there were a few studies a couple of years ago in 2018, just at the end of 2018, that got published that said that linked it in male rats to cancer. So there's a lot of publications out there that show, hey, there is a problem, there is a concern. But what I find is that because it's such a big problem, I mean, we have no control really. Many of us here today. We aren't involved in making the decisions around where a cell tower gets placed or what technologies are used in that, what level of intensity is that signal at. We're just not involved in that. And so that makes it a problem that we often just kind of push off to the side. We say, we get it, but we don't know what we can do about it. And so we don't really know how to solve that problem. And that's why I started this company. I started it because I had health issues in my own family. Those health issues needed to be addressed in ways that the kind of modern medical community wasn't able to solve. Chronic issues in my oldest daughter, that immune systems, neurological system, cardiological system that were just being affected, and we couldn't balance. And what I've learned over the years is that nature thrives when we're in balance. People thrive when they're in balance. Animals, plants, the grass thrives when we're in balance. And that nature actually wants to be, that's what it's called, the homeostasis. We're always working hard to be in homeostasis. But if there's a suppressive blanket, that's suppressing that ability, then that creates stress. And stress leads to all sorts of issues. And, if balance or harmony is the goal, then stress creates disharmony. And disharmony can lead to dis-ease, right? And that dis-ease can manifest itself in the soils we use, the plants, the animals, even ourselves. But if we can restore that, then we can start from a level playing ground again. And what we think is normal around yield production or daily weight gain or even quality of food, what we think is normal today actually might not be normal. Maybe the normal is what's produced in this balanced environment, this balanced field. And that's what these products do. These plates that we have, whether it's the personal use where we have these necklaces, right? That really it's these plates, right? Exactly. And all of our technology, it's all going to be the same. It's these plates are treated in a way that orients and makes the light that reflects off of it coherent. And there's different forms of light. There's the whole electromagnetic spectrum, right? That includes radio waves, microwaves, gamma waves, and that whole spectrum is a form of light that can be either coherent or decoherent. And with that terminology kind of goes into the whole quantum world of quantum mechanics and quantum biology. But really, energy is resonating, and we want to resonate in a healthy way. And the higher our resonance, the higher our vibrational resonance, the healthier we are, the more balanced we are. And we see that with plants and animals too. The higher they vibrate, the higher their resonance, the more chlorophyll that plant's going to produce, the better the photosynthesis. So a lot of folks in the biodynamic industry or community or the regenerative ag community understand this because they are focused on solving these problems. And what our plates, the way they're treated and all, we can get into that, do is they make that light coherent, which balances out the negative sources of energy so that now we are in a balanced field, a balanced environment.
So let's bring it home for folks. If I have a farm, if I have a ranch, why should I be concerned about these 5G waves coming in? How is this product going to be able to help me?
So I have a flyer that I can share with you that actually lists out how EMF in the published research, how it actually affects the farm, whether it's in the plants, where plants photosynthesis is actually a quantum mechanics problem, and it is affected dramatically by the energy in the air in the fields, and that energy coming from 5G towers, cell towers, power lines, it affects photosynthesis by reducing it up to 30% of its effective rate. Now, photosynthesis is really important because it is the engine by which plants are grown, right? And the greenness of that plant is affected by the quality of the photosynthesis. And greenness, as we know, is a sign of health, a sign of nutrition. Plants create sugars, and those sugars go into the soil through the roots. And those sugars help break down that soil and give food for the microorganisms that are in there. Now, if we're reducing photosynthesis by 30%, we're reducing the quality of that sugar. which will impact the microorganisms in the soil. And one of the things that we want in good soil is it to be aerobic. We want it to be highly oxygenated. We want there to be that whole nutrient life cycle, right? Where you've got the things that like viruses and whatnot, very, very microscopic organisms working in there. And as they die, they become food for the bacteria. And then the bacteria becomes food for the fungi, and the fungi becomes food for nematodes and worms and things. And it's a whole life cycle in that soil. And if the soil becomes anaerobic, meaning it doesn't have the oxygen, it maybe becomes compacted or hard, those processes break down. And one of the things that can lead to that is if the plants aren't producing the sugars that you need for that life cycle. And another thing that can come is just from farm practices. So if you are trying to rebuild the soil, one of the things you're trying to do is get that aerobic, that oxygen into that soil. Now, our plates, because of how they're produced, actually will help both on the plant side by helping increase the photosynthetic capacity, but they also make oxygen more available because it's balancing the environment so that oxygen is readily available, and it'll be readily available in the soil. So that's one thing to be concerned about with EMF and 5G. The other thing is that that addresses both the soil and the plants to some degree, right? But the animals themselves are actually under a stress as well. And that stress can affect them in their immune system. It can cause inflammation, and it can reduce their natural healing ability and recovery. It can also affect them neurologically, and it can affect in dairies, it can affect milk production. In cattle, it can affect their daily weight gain, their meat, how much they're packing on. It can affect their ability to be resilient to droughts or to other things like that. Same with plants. We see that they have a higher drought tolerance as well. And we find that in strong EMF environments, pests become a bigger issue. And so when you remove that stress from EMF, the plant resonance, their vibrational resonance will increase. And now pests actually are less of an issue. And they're less of an issue because the pests are there to kind of clean up what we see in maybe an unhealthy plant or things like that. And so when it says that the plant is unhealthy, that vibrational resonance is low, you're going to get pests that want to come in and eat that plant, remove it from the ecosystem. But if you can raise the vibrational resonance and the energy of that plant, it becomes healthier. And now you get the beneficial bugs only that are going to help promote it, as opposed to the negative ones that want to destroy it, because they say, look, that plant looks healthy. We're not here to eat that one. We're going to go over to this other field and start go over there. Pollinators are also dramatically affected by EMF. EMF it's chaotic in nature. It's disorienting for pollinators, your bees, your moths, your butterflies. And bees, they communicate through frequency. And if that frequency is disrupted, they become less functional. The colony may collapse. The colony may leave. They're just going to maybe be underperformant and underproduction. And so when we see is in most of our producers that we work with, a lot of them will have beehives placed there by commercial bee farmers. And they're routinely told that the hives on their properties produce more honey than the other bees that those commercial producers are watching. And they find that those bees are more docile, that those hives actually are easier to manage and easier to care for, that they're healthier. And that's just an anecdotal point. Those beekeepers don't know that there's a conditioner on their field, but they just say, looks like you guys are doing a great job on this farm because our bees are just easy to maintain and manage. So really, it's a holistic approach to solving the issue. I think a lot of people are actually trying to solve the EMF issue already. It's a risk. They don't realize it, but whether it's through amendments that they're putting down, fertilizers they're putting down, foliar sprays that they're working on, they're probably spending a lot more on those amendments and those sprays and those applications because of the stress from EMF than they otherwise would need to. So if they can create a balanced environment where the plants and the grass and everything is not under the stress from EMF, how much more functionalized would the applications be that they're applying? Will the nutrients be the fertilizers, the foliar sprays? Can we functionalize that nitrogen and that potassium and the other things that we're adding to the soils? Could they become more functional because we've given them an environment that's more balanced and more conducive to a healthy ecosystem and a healthy structure? I tend to think we can, and I think a lot of our farmers are seeing that. They see that in year one, and then they're going to see that again and again down the road as those years progress. The longer that ecosystem is under a balanced environment, the longer it has to not just become healthy, or be balanced, but become healthier and more functional. And now the more microorganisms you have that are teeming and coming to life, the more aerobic that soil. Now the plants get deeper roots, and now the plant becomes more healthy. And then when the cattle come by or the livestock come by and start eating that grass down, there's more nutrition in that, and the cattle can start to benefit from that. So it is a whole ecosystem thing. That's a holistic approach that benefits a lot different life cycles within the farm. And the longer it's on the farm, the more beneficial we see the results. What we're seeing, and the reason why you as a producer would need this on your property today, and why I'm here, is because we're dealing with a threat that has been around for many years, and we didn't even know it existed. It's called EMF. It's 5G. It's coming from things that are outside of our control, but it's putting a stressor on your farm. And what the ag conditioner does from Geofield is it actually balances out those frequencies from the cell towers, from the power lines, so that you can actually have a balanced environment on your farm that actually leads to benefits across the soil, the plants, the water, the pollinators, and your livestock.
You had even told me some really cool success stories, and I'm about to put one of them on the screen for folks here in a minute. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this story?
Yeah. So when John Wood, who's a producer in Northeast Missouri, he has a testimonial on our website, and he speaks to what he saw the very first year he put this in. We installed it in the spring, and by the end of that year, he actually had noticed that his cattle increased their daily weight gain. If I remember correctly, up to 20%. It was a pretty significant uptick in their daily weight gain. And that was in that first round, right? Just for that first year. But then what he realized is that the cattle that typically he'd have to overwinter and then take to market in the springtime actually had gained enough weight to where he was able to take them to market before the winter. And he was able to save all the costs that go into that. And actually, he brought on some new ones, some new cattle, some yearlings earlier the next year than he expected. So he was able to speed up his cycle. And the yearlings that came in, this is also an interesting story. They actually came in at a time where the weather was really cold. It was below zero. And they were new yearlings to his farm. He's a grass-fed operation. And they had to learn all of that, right? So the temperature was below 10, it was negative 10. And yet what he found, he definitely expected that they were going to lose weight those first couple of weeks as they got adapted to his new operation. What he found is that some of them actually maintained their weight while others actually increased their weight just slightly. He said that he believed that was because of the effect of the conditioners, allowing the stress from the EMF to not be an issue so they could better handle the stress that they were dealing with from the environment. The natural stressor. A couple stories just from John alone that are really interesting. And he even says this is a really important thing for a producer.
Well, you heard it here from Dan. Let's go hear from John Wood himself, a grass-fed producer using Dan's products.
I was excited about the tool that would take the EMF stress off of plants, livestock, and animals. And I think this is it's actually worked better than what I even dreamed. Plants, animals, crop yields, I think we increased everything by at least 20%. Hi Dan, I'm John Wood. I'm a fifth generation family farmer in Lewis County, northeast Missouri, 2 miles away from the Mississippi River. This is some of the beautiful hill country as it falls off into the river valley. I've been an Allen Savory advocate since about 1993 or 4. We started producing grass-fed beef in 1997 as kind of a Missouri show me state type project. We didn't think it was going to work. We did it for 3 years in a row, but we realized this was a really viable project. And so we started U.S. Wellness Meats in September of year 2000. We were way ahead of the curve. No one knew what it was, but we were persistent, a good Scotch-Irish ancestry, and we were able to make this thing work. Last 3 or 4 years, summer performance, year-round performance was starting to trend downward, and I'm a little puzzled by it. I've tested the water, tested the soil, fecal sample the animals. Nothing really stood out, but I really think there's an EMF factor going on. 3G phones came out 10, 12 years ago. 3G just kind of barely able to give you no signal to do a phone call. Then the internet became widely accepted on the mobile devices. 4G phones came available here 5 or 6 years ago. I think the 4G was just a higher frequency, more bombardment, and I think we were starting to affect animals. When we just first met back in December of 2019, actually came across your business and your company through a biofeedback doctor, holistic doctor that I knew, and he made the introduction. I'm a person that's not afraid to try new things. After visiting with your agronomist in New Zealand for 45 minutes, I became quite convinced. He's been around as long as I have on the planet, and he was skeptical, and he'd been doing research for 10 years. And he said, you're going to see a 20% increase in grain crops, 20% or more increase in live animal performance. Plants are going to be better, and it's kind of fascinating to me that EMF stress is going to affect green living plants. It affects the photosynthesis, affects the plant's ability to grow, and I've seen ample evidence. I just produced a ton of forage. We were involved in University of Missouri forage research thing this summer. My son went out every 10 days with a special tool that University of Missouri has developed to measure how much forage growth, and they were somewhat shocked at how much forage growth we saw on this farm. They were kind of amazed. We just had forage coming out of our ears. Even on the fence rows, you have the bird, poops on the fence row, the sprouts come up, and I think I've never seen things grow so fast in fence rows this year. A soybean, I got 30 acres of soybeans under EMF, 30 acres 10 miles away, and there was almost a 20 bushel increase. We had a flash drought in August, so the rainfall patterns are about the same. There might have been a few little variable factors, field edge factors, but there's not that much yield difference just based off of normal wear and tear in crops in this area. So I'm convinced I've got at least a 20% increase in yields off those soybean plants. It looks to me like the easiest way to pick up your return on equity, return on investment. This doesn't cost that much, and I think you look at the overall picture of commercial agriculture, it's a really low margin game. The input costs are always driven by what the sellers can get away with. This is an unfair advantage for producers to take advantage of. Just weighed some of these animals over my shoulder about 2 weeks ago, and it looks to me like they're gaining about 2.25 pounds a day. Now this is no grain inputs, no energy inputs whatsoever. This is just forage growth, and we had some really hot days this summer. And you can do over 2 pounds a day in this environment on conventional pasture in northeast Missouri. It's extremely well. You figure in the summertime you're going to get about 1.35 to 1.5 pounds a day is good. You get over 2 pounds a day, you're really, really happy. And I've seen this 5 or 6, 7 years ago, but I haven't seen it for the last 4 or 5 years. And I think we've got really good evidence that we've improved it dramatically this year.
So I think there's only one thing left that we need to find out, and that's how can we get our hands on your products?
Right. So you can contact us directly. We have a website for the farmers. It's called geofieldsystems.com. Geofield Systems, plural.com. That's where you can find more information and more testimonials and whatnot about the ag conditioner itself, which is the premier product for farms and the farm operations. The other place to go is if you want this for yourself. If you want to have one of these pendants or one of what we call a light tower, we have consumer products. That's on a website called theemffix.com. Theemffix.com. And that's where you'll find information related to products for yourself, for your home, or for your small garden.
And I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. Also, just it's incredible that you're out here helping American producers to do a better job on their operations, making them more viable, making their animals more healthy, making them more successful. And that's what it's all about.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity. And again, I'm just so thrilled. I'm so grateful that I get a chance to share these solutions to help protect us from the EMF and support our quest to be healthier and more wealth. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.